We'll call the meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Kolpak.
Here.
Pepcorn.
Here.
Preston.
Here.
Strand.
Here.
Mahoney.
Here. Assessor's Office. Homeowners have till March 31st to apply for $500 to save $500 on next year's property taxes. To apply or for more information, visit North Dakota Tax Department website. Inspections. The Inspections Department will be going through code adoption this year. This process happens every 3 years and will include the following international codes: building, residential, fuel, gas, mechanical, electric conservation, existing buildings, property maintenance. Later this year, the changes to the codes will be presented to the Board of Appeals for approval and then submitted to the Mayor and City Council for final revisions and passage. Library. The Seed Library has returned for spring of 2024, and if you are new to gardening and don't know where to start, or you are tired of the same old varieties, stop by any library location to pick up and try out some new seeds for free. There are a variety of vegetable, herb, and flower seeds available while supplies last. History Book Club meets March 26 at 6:30 at the main library and features the title In the Shadow of Fear, America and the World in 1950 by Nick Bunker. Planning. According to the December 2023 apartment survey, the percentage of vacant apartments in Fargo has increased from 4.2% in June to 7.3% in December. In 2023, there's estimated 924 apartments opened in the metro area, and there are 1,400 units under construction. At least half are expected to be open in 2024. The last Saturday, I participated in the 27th Annual St. Patrick's Day Parade, along with the Fargo Police Department, the Fargo Fire Department, and Commissioner Kolpak. There were a great turnout, even though it was a colder day than we'd been planning on or had lately. I want to thank all the city employees across several departments and divisions who help facilitate the logistics of this parade every year. While they make it look effortless and easy, we know it is neither. It is a complex process, and the recognition of this incredible work, we have a short video that highlights some of the fun. There were a lot of kids, and they sure liked the candy. So, is there a motion to approve the order of agenda?
So, second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the March 4th regular meeting and the March 5th special meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 42?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Kolpak.
Aye.
Preston.
Aye.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Resident comments. Cody Schuler.
Good evening, Cody Schuler, he, him pronouns, advocacy manager on behalf of the ACLU of North Dakota. The freedom of speech, of press, of association, of assembly, and petition. This set of guarantees protected by the First Amendment comprises what is known as the freedom of expression, sometimes called the indispensable condition of nearly every other form of freedom. Standing publicly and having the ability to address one's civic concerns is a cornerstone of democracy. And as elected officials, you have the responsibility to protect its erosion. Elected officials also can frame decorum and format, and this is extraordinary responsibility that you have and should be used with care to protect democracy and increase and elevate the freedom of expression as you review your governance policies. This meeting is the highest profile of public meeting in the community, held by the highest elected officials of the city. While increased options such as town halls and listening sessions are more than welcome, one would have the importance and the guaranteed attendance of top elected officials, city department heads, and viewership of the public and the press that this meeting does. The business of this meeting is the business of its citizens. Tax incentives, potholes, and drinkable water are vital business, and so is the grief of citizens losing family to war, citizens experiencing the front lines of racial injustice, citizens who do not have wealth or status to access the halls of power. This is also the business of the city. If it is stated at the last meeting that official advisory committees of the city feel that their work isn't always making it to the commission's agenda, where is the voice of the average voter if not at this microphone? Commissioners, the police chief, department heads, all have next to unfettered access to a microphone in these meetings without public interruption or rebuttal. 30 minutes in this chamber every other week of the people's voices uninterrupted may be uncomfortable or frustrating at times, but it is a part of the vital dialogue between the public of their elected officials and others dedicated to serve the public. I am thankful of the incredible access of the people of Fargo that have to their elected, dedicated to their elected officials. Your openness as elected officials and the personal you and your interactions is so vital. We are thankful, but not everyone in the future sitting in your seats may hold the same value. It is important that you steward and foster democracy in this chamber.
We don't applaud. Cal Bauer. During your speaking, you have 2 minutes and 30 seconds. You will hear a double beep 15 seconds before your end, and you're expected to be completed by 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Thank you.
I'm Cal Bauer, resident of Fargo. I've lived in Fargo pretty much my whole life, and I've never been scared for my life by way of disease or by way of famine. For citizens and children in Gaza, their constant reality is much darker and brutal than anything you or I have ever experienced. In just 6 months, over 30,000 killed, as you keep hearing, over 12,000 children's lives ended before they could begin. My generation watches these horrors and crimes committed by the IDF and the Israeli state with funding from all of our pockets. Our money fuels this slaughter. All whilst our leaders and media continue to frame the death and the carnage by labeling these lives as simply victims of war. 75 years of Palestinian displacement and apartheid disagrees with the notion that these people are just victims of war. 6 months of bombing schools, more than half of Gaza's homes destroyed or damaged, disagrees with these just being victims of war. This is an ethnic cleansing, the stripping of all basic human rights, food, water, shelter, even medicine. The UN documented that at least 26 attacks on Palestinians waiting for aid have occurred since January. The acts of the IDF and the Israeli state are nothing but evil. Will we as a nation continue to fuel this evil? I've been hearing a common sentiment recently among commissioners that we as a city and you as commissioners can't do anything to solve this because we're too far away from it. We're not expecting your actions or the cities to end this alone, but it is our country who's chosen to not only be complicit in genocide, but give it means to continue. We, as the citizens and local communities of America, are the only ones who can tell our leaders what we want, for no one else in the world can. Choosing neutrality here is the same as siding with the oppressor. If we hide away in our comfort, shield our eyes and cover our ears, their cries don't stop, their blood is still shed, their horror continues while we stand complicit in genocide. Fellow human beings are starved, sick, and scared, with no way to escape the terror of occupation. So we must stand with Palestinians. We must not allow their cries to fall on deaf ears, especially when their blood is on our hands. I call only to your humanity, for it takes nothing else. There is no longer any moral basis to claim neutrality. This moral is black and white. What is moral is free Palestinian people. What is moral is to call for a permanent ceasefire.
Irma Foslovic.
Good evening, Commissioners. I am a genocide survivor from Bosnia and Herzegovina, where an estimated 100,000 people were killed between 1992 through 1995. I came to this country as a war refugee when I was 7 years old. After the genocide in Bosnia, I kept hearing the words "never again," but it seems to be that "never again" has exceptions on who it applies to. I'm here today to ask you to join me and many others to call for a ceasefire in Palestine. We have been coming here repeatedly and asking you to join our voices with the voices of over 70 cities in the U.S., including Moorhead, that have passed ceasefire resolutions. There is no safe place for the 2 million displaced civilians. At this point, they are waiting for their turn to die. Israeli forces have shown zero regard for human life and ignored international law as if it doesn't apply to them. If governments can condone and aid the violation of human rights in another part of the world, then it's a violation of all of our human rights. All I can think about is the fact that Palestinian children held a press conference in English purposely so that we would understand and ask the world to put an end to the massacres. All I can think about is the children who screamed, "What fault is it of mine? I'm just a child. I just want to play and go to school." How can we live in a world where innocent men, women, and children can be systematically starved, shot, bombed, displaced, deprived of basic aid, and it be called a right to defend? We have Palestinians in our community and here with us today who are worried sick about their families and have not heard from them in months. Victims of Gaza children exceed victims of all other wars worldwide in the last 4 years. Since October 7th, 14,000 children have been killed by Israeli forces. 14,000 children, but they are not numbers. They were kids with hopes, dreams, and futures. Palestinian mothers and fathers love their children just as much as you all love yours. We have a collective duty as a society to protect and safeguard all children in this world. That is why it is imperative that we call for a ceasefire. Thank you.
Hababi Mbasoudi.
Upon attending City Hall meetings to discuss a ceasefire resolution, a question that managed to make its way into every conversation is why, as Fargo commissioners, should you partake in a problem that far exceeds the borders of your city and community? But in that question lies your first mistake. The community you wish to serve has stood here before you on many occasions to show you that the genocide has left a great dent in their lives, just as much, if not more, as those living closer to the borders of Palestine and Israel. And once again, we stand here tonight wearing our pain as a badge of honor, begging you to care, if even a little. To show you just how affected we are, I will be sharing with you the words of those whom your position holds you responsible for representing. I am ashamed of my leaders, both local and national. I am ashamed of humanity. There is no acceptable reason to allow so very many people, especially children, to be murdered. This is not political. It's not radical. It is normal to do everything we can to stop participating. Fargonian. Another person said, I've had nightmares that I'm in Gaza while it's being bombed. I'm digging my way through the rubble and death. I see crying Palestinian children covered in dust and blood, and I can't find my family. I find myself experiencing emotional crisis more frequently and with greater severity and duration, often in response to everyday stressors. I can't help but think that bearing witness to the violent deaths in Palestine and the self-immolation of Aaron Bushnell are having an impact on my daily life. I have been sick for the last 6 months since I've learned about the horrifying things happening courtesy of our tax dollars. Instead of solving the homelessness epidemic, improving our healthcare, education system, or infrastructure, we are funding total destruction of an entire people halfway across the globe. Teacher. My 11-year-old told me recently out of sheer anger and frustration, you know what I wish would happen to every Israeli soldier? I wish the soul of every child killed would enter them so they can feel and hear their pain from the inside out. Oof, we're all swallowed whole by grief. Amy. The day a child this young is forced to say these words is the day you must recognize your failure to represent them as leaders. And the sad truth is, this is what the past few months have felt like for all of us. Like we were haunted by the pain and grief of thousands of children and mothers and fathers. It's time you chose to represent your community rather than your government. Call for a ceasefire and use your voice to spread ours like you promised.
Prairie Johnson.
On December 2nd last year, journalists entered a children's hospital and witnessed a crime fit for not even the worst nightmares. Multiple dead newborn infants were rotting and decomposing in hospital beds. Sharing this information with you in January feels so far away. Al-Shifa Hospital was attacked again last night. This is not normal. Imagine this happening here. What could justify the destruction of Essentia or Sanford? Nothing justifies the mass killing of civilians. Nothing justifies bombing hospitals or leaving infants to die. Children are starving now. Elders are starving, skin and bones. Imagine you cannot feed your children. There is no food. This is preventable tragedy. The continued financial, political, and munitions support of our country is what has allowed this to continue. My taxes are killing innocent people. Your taxes are killing people. Every day you do not act to stop this, you are fueling it. You are choosing to allow this violence. You are choosing to turn your hearts and your empathy away from not only humanity as a whole, but also all of us, your neighbors, your colleagues, your constituents. By turning a blind eye, by being indifferent, by making your community basically beg to feel cared for. You are not being neutral, you are complicit. Letting the people of Fargo know that you do not care about our past, our present, or our futures. We do not need to be sisters or priests or scholars or doctors to know that what is happening is wrong. To know that this needs to end now. Being a person who exists, loves, lives, and wanting those same minimals to be for others is not radical. Wanting liberty and justice for all, as you pledge tonight, is normal. You cannot honor your ancestors or be good ancestors yourselves while excusing the ethnic cleansing and torture of a whole people. It has been months. Every moment matters. One Fargonian said, no one can turn back the past, whether it be recent months or what's taken place for generations, but we can create a better tomorrow. Our future rests on our goodwill, our good works for the greater good of all. History continues. The next chapters are ours to write. Let's all think about how we'd like this story to go from this point in time. Otherwise, others will define us, and it won't be pretty, especially with no change of heart. I look forward to your vote, Free Palestine.
Kyle Fieldhake.
Hello, Commissioners. Amidst a continued assault and worsening famine being imposed on Gaza, which in all likelihood will easily kill over 100,000 people, if not hundreds of thousands, in the very near future without a ceasefire, I come today not to talk about this rapidly accelerating crisis, but just our ability to even speak with you about our equally accelerating concerns. When we first started to make public comments on this issue in January, we were delighted to see the mayor and the city commission express a deep commitment to meeting with the citizens who they have the privilege to represent. Mayor Mahoney that night said, "The reality is that all the commissioners are easily accessible with emails and or telephones or meetings in person," end quote. We were glad from the start to hear such a commitment, but the reality is right now, not all the commissioners, including the mayor, are not easily accessible. It is true that the mayor has met with others regarding this issue on the ceasefire, but this simply isn't enough. I've tried contacting the mayor looking for a specific answer to a point he hasn't addressed. I want to know why he feels it's appropriate to comment on state legislation regarding human rights violations, such as the anti-trans legislation last year, but not federal policy. I've been looking for him to support or to explain his support that goes beyond an arbitrary distinction of federal versus state. I called the mayor's office 4 times, leaving messages and my number, calling back when his secretary said he would be back in office, yet nothing. I wanted to be cognizant of your time and thought a short 5-minute phone call wouldn't be asking for much, especially given your prior commitment to being in conversation with the community. With no success there, I tried scheduling an in-person meeting, which I was told to be overjoyed with your statement and denied the meeting. If commissioners aren't even willing to take a 5-minute phone call, the public comment is our only guaranteed way to make sure you can listen to our concerns. I really appreciate the adding the town hall idea. I truly do think that is a really great idea, and I hope you guys do pursue it. It is a fabulous idea, but further community feedback doesn't have to come at the expense of already existing channels, especially when it is already lacking. Thank you.
Mohammed Sanala.
Mayor, Deputy Mayor, City Commissioners, I'm Mohammed Sanaullah. I'm a hospitalist, palliative care specialist, and a part-time administrator at Sanford. I didn't come prepared with a speech, but I just wanted to have a conversation with the city leaders. I have met you many times, Mayor Mahoney. You and I were part of planning for a COVID-19 pandemic when that was around. We sat down with our Army officials when we were trying to make the Fargo Dome our regional hub for our hospital. And I met with Commissioner Kolpak and Mayor Mahoney in the past when our police officers came in line of fire from a terrorist. So I, as a member of this community, a physician in this community, I've been here 21 years. My kids have been born and brought up here. This is a matter which is more of a moral principle. It is, I've heard columnists talking in the forum about how the city is supposed to just focus on sanitation. I mean, that's a word I don't know why. You guys have much more responsibility. You are our morals, you're representing us, and we want us to be heard. I mean, I feel as a physician from palliative medicine, empathy is something I feel dear to every physician and to every official out there. You have to have the empathy to think and feel like your subjects. And if you see people talking here from, civil rights, by students, physicians, interfaith religious leaders coming up here and telling you guys, this is serious, please call for a ceasefire. I urge you, when the time comes, when you are sitting in deliberation, it's a no-brainer. Look into your morals. Don't look for political leaning. This is not politics. This is about what would a human being do. Think about your children there, not eating, staying in those places, no power. It is collective punishment. Let's agree to that. Look at, read it. I know people have different backgrounds, but think about what is happening to the innocent civilians, women and children. I mean, where is your empathy? That will be reflected on your vote. Who's abstaining? That would be reflective on your vote. Who is voting against? That will be reflected on your vote. And we will not forget, because we as the city people, elections come again and again. And we will make sure this time it will be different. So I urge you with the elections that you put your vote in the right place. Thank you.
Crystal Duker.
I'm proudly a resident of Fargo. Today in The Hill, it's a Washington, D.C. newspaper, U.S. Representative Adam Schiff said in The Hill, I want to highlight Senator Chuck Schumer of New York. He laid the responsibility of this war exactly where it lies, and that is with Hamas, that attacked, murdered, raped, tortured Israelis. On October 7, they continue to hold hostages, continue in a cowardly way to use Palestinian people as human shields. Hamas terrorists hiding behind women and children in Gaza. The responsibility lies with Hamas. I also agree with Senator Chuck Schumer and his comments about regarding the necessity of reducing civilian casualties in Gaza. For the record, Senator Chuck Schumer of New York is Jewish. For the record, Representative Adam Schiff is Jewish. He's from a family born in Massachusetts who came to the U.S. during the Holocaust, during World War II. For the record, there's about 20,000 people that are dead, yes, but 12,000 of them are Hamas terrorists killed by Israeli forces. Sadly, this morning in the hospital, Hamas again was organizing. They were discovered. They shot on the Israeli forces. They used the hospital, which is against the Geneva Convention. Why is it that Hamas gets by with using a hospital or schools, hiding under tunnels, popping up like a mole with a gun to shoot innocent people? The Israeli forces have a right to defend their country that was attacked on October 7th. I grieve for the Palestinian people who have been caught in this clash. It's not their fault. It is the fault of Hamas. And we must stand and let the process continue. In Doha, Qatar right now, they are meeting for negotiations for a ceasefire. Even if this passed, it doesn't make any difference because the higher powers will take care of this. The voices of Fargo is just a front line story.
Item 44, plat of Meadow View, second edition. Approval recommended by Planning Commission 10-323. Donald Crest to explain.
Good evening, Commissioners. Wait for my PowerPoint here for a second.
Well, you blocked mine, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Greg. Good evening, Commissioners. Donald Crest with the Department of Planning and Development. Our first item tonight, as the Mayor stated, agenda item 44, is Meadow View Second Edition, a major subdivision including a vacation of right-of-way. This project is located here in the Meadow View subdivision, here 70th Avenue South, Davies High School over here, University Drive South. And it's a replat of these lots. This is really, as noted in your staff report, is a bit of an experiment. As you know, we have many subdivisions where the lots are fairly narrow, close together. And the idea behind this is to make that a little easier to work with. Here are some photos of the site. As you see, the Meadow View Drive there being laid out and ready for construction here, looking a couple of different directions. The existing houses are not in the current subdivision. The zoning here is SR4, single dwelling residential, and the zoning will remain the same. But what's going to change here is Meadow View Drive was originally a 70-foot wide right-of-way when it was originally dedicated a couple of years ago at the Meadow View addition plat. And the applicant, working with our city staff, wanted to try an idea to create a slightly wider right-of-way. So this is where it's described as a vacation and rededication of right-of-way. The street is now 74 feet wide, idea being to provide a little extra room for street trees, parking, and then you see these dashed lines on here. These are called negative access easements, and what they do is they limit access into the lot and better define the driveway spacing so that it's a more, you might say, a more usable street. It's a more easy to deal with street when you have the narrower lots close together and it doesn't get so congested, especially in winter. There is a slight increase in the number of lots as indicated in your staff report. These lots all remain the same. This set of lots went from 16 to 20, so there's a slight increase in the number of lots. Just for your information, here's the difference between the original right-of-way here, showing the paved section here, the boulevard and the sidewalk. Here we see the boulevard is a couple of feet wider. Street remains the same width, but we're just trying something to try out here, a little different idea, and we hope that this will be successful. Vacations right-of-way are done pursuant to North Dakota Century Code requirements, as noted in the staff report. That's not something that's in our land development code. The applicant's representative is John Eunice. John Eunice is still here. And Rory Wollizer of Eagle Ridge Development are with us tonight, and they wish to address the commission. The Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in the staff report and shown on the screen. That concludes staff's presentation, Commissioners. Thank you.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to the zoning change? Is there anyone present who wishes to speak? We'll close the public hearing. Donald, I was just curious, at one time when this came before us before, there was a sense of how big it should be, and you're basically making it bigger by 4 lots, basically, right? But is that because that's more affordable, or is that what people want, or what is the public buying out there?
I would, if I may refer to the applicant, Mr. Yunus, he'd probably answer that question better than I, sir.
Just one of the residents that lives by there was curious, because I know it was debated at the time we first did this project.
Yeah, Commissioners, John Eunice with Eagle Ridge Development. You're exactly right. It's this plat was done just to add a couple extra lots. What we're finding is that as the lots get wider, the special assessments go up. So we're trying to find that sweet spot where we can get a entry-level single-family house on a lot that's still affordable.
And what's like an entry-level home now? What does it cost when they get done?
In this, they're going to be somewhere between $275,000 and $325,000.
Thank you. Any discussion from the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. I also had a resident call me, and I'm just curious what, he was asking about this. It says here this proposal is somewhat of an experiment conceived by the city staff and the developer. Help me understand that in the experiment side of this, when we have growth plans and future visions and strategic plans, where does an experiment fit into that approach?
I'll answer part of that, and I think I should ask Mr. Nakmus, our city engineer, might come up and join us as well. So normally, for instance, driveway spacing is normally just adjusted by policy and ordinance. Here, we're actually doing something different by putting these negative access easements in here, further defining where the driveways can go. That's something we don't normally do. Tom, if you want to take over that discussion, I was not really actually part of the planning for that. Okay. So I'll defer to Mr. Nakmus here.
So like Donald has kind of spoken to, the goal is to create more snow storage in the boulevards. I don't think these narrow lot developments are going away. There's certainly a need in our community. But it does pose some issues with public works as far as snow storage and needing to haul away snow from the neighborhoods. Another complaint that we've gotten in engineering over the years in some of these smaller lot developments, excuse me, is just the availability of on-street parking. And so to your question of, how does this feed into growth plan, land development code? We kind of see this as, well, this might be a solution to address some of those issues. We had a willing developer that was willing to work with us on this replat. And so we made that request to see if it's something we could implement greater scale to the growth plan and land development code.
Mr. Preston?
So I think we probably all talked to the same gentleman. One of the other questions he had was the setback as related to the wider right-of-way. Does it require the buildings to be set back further in the lot? And then the second part of that was, and I think this is more of a builder issue, the drainage off of the homes or off the buildings and impacting the lots behind them.
I'll do the first one and you can do the second one. Okay. Tag team presentation here. So basically the lots, as they're replatted, the street just gets wider. So the setback from the lot line is the same. It's the same SR4 setback as it was always be, except the road is wider. So everything got wider.
So the setback from the lot line, so the lot line does not move.
Well, it did from the original because what happened was the street was originally 70 feet wide here.
Right.
And now it's 74 feet wide. So these lots here didn't change in overall configuration, but they got 2 feet shorter because the road moved 2 feet. So as always, the front property line is here, and that'll be measured, the SR4 setback from the property line.
So basically, the building is getting set back an additional 4 feet.
Well,
Am I
2 feet,
understanding
2
you
feet on
correctly?
each side. Yeah, 2 feet
Okay.
on each side. Yes, initial. You are correct, ma'am. Yes.
To add on to, if I may, to add on to Donald's point, the road isn't getting wider. What's actually getting wider is the green space.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Yes, the right
But
of way.
it's still impacting the
Yep,
setback.
so it's
was my
sliding, the
question.
homes are sliding further away from the city street, compared to what they would have been under a traditional 70-foot right-of-way.
Yes, it's the right of way that's getting wider. Thank you.
And as far as drainage, we design rear yard grades with all of our new developments and grade them when we leave the project area. Builders do come in and build, and then they call us, our survey department, to come in and stake rear yard grades back to our original design. And that's the responsibility of the builder to grade to those stakes that we provide.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Strand?
Thank you, Mayor. In these developments, and it has been a movement in the city to get more affordability, which means more housing in the spaces we have available. And we've heard from folks with snow removal issues, which you're talking about, and drainage issues. Something I haven't heard mentioned, and I'm curious about, is the proximity of the structures to each other, because I'm aware, to my knowledge, of moments where one fire might encroach onto a nearby building, melting the siding and maybe putting it at risk. How close are they, and how close do they need to be for fire safety? And how does that fit in this plan?
Well, so the SR4 side yard setbacks define the side yard setback. We get Chief Dirksen up here on, I'll segue in here for you, Chief. There are building and fire code restrictions on the buildings that address part of what you're talking about. I'm going to turn it over to Chief Dirksen.
Yeah, the setbacks are all set by the zoning. So the housing zoning, I can't remember, Donald, is it 4 feet on each side? So, from the lot line to the house has to be 4 feet. So you have 8 foot of space between each house.
Is that adequate from your perspective as a chief of the fire department?
That's, it can be. It all really kind of depends on things, on where the fire starts and things like that. We do have concerns that, fire could grow because of the close proximity, but that seems to be a common distance that's used in many communities. So I think it's been proven that way.
Good.
Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Preston?
say one more thing. I have to commend the developer in actually doing this kind of development. I mean, it is actually where we're headed. To make things more affordable, the lots have to get smaller, the footprint has to get smaller. So this is really a project that fits with where we're going.
Any other comments? And we know 80-foot lots are hard to sell now. They used to be 80-foot lots all the time. Now we're down to 50, 40, 35.
Mine's 78.
Whatever they can afford. Roll call vote, please.
Preston,
Aye.
Colpack,
Aye.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Item 45, Interstate Business District Addition. Approval recommended by the Planning Commission on 2/6/24. Growth plan amendment from the residential, lower to medium density commercial and proposed park to industrial and commercial. Zoning change from agriculture and limited industrial with conditional overlay to limited industrial with conditional overlay, general commercial with conditional overlay, and public and institutional. First reading the rezoning ordinance and a plat of the Interstate Business District Addition. Donald Crest to explain.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, as the mayor stated, item 45 is the Interstate Business District Addition. Commissioners, as the note in your staff report states, a slightly different version of this project was before you in 2023. Ultimately, your commission denied it in the September 18th, 2023 City Commission meeting. Pursuant to what's allowed in our land development code, the applicant could reapply after a period of 3 months. There are some minor changes we'll talk about here as we go forward. And the applicant did so in December 2023. He went to the Planning Commission in February of 2024 and is now before your commission. So it looks a lot like the last one, but we regard it as a new project. That is, it starts a new cycle of commission hearings. The hearings and the recommendations from the previous time do not carry over to this. So just to clarify that for you. The aerial view of the property here outlined in the black is right by I-20, Interstate 29, 40th Avenue North, 45th Street North, City Riley's Acres, and the Riley's Acres extraterritorial jurisdiction area here, as this is also Riley's Acres ETJ. and then our landmark Amazon over here as well. Just a couple of shots of the site here. This one's off the bridge over the railroad, which is not a good place to take a picture from here, but Prairie Estates residences, as the folks identify their community, are here on the west side of 45th Street. Op Construction, which you'll hear referred to, is way on the north end. And then there was a piece cut out, Memory Fireworks, which is owned by one of the applicants, is not part of this plat. This is still not annexed in the city. And then here's just a shot looking north from 40th Avenue North, just to see these items here that you'll be referred to in the discussion here. 45th Street North, you're looking north here, Cass County Drain 40, and the road to Op Construction is here. As the mayor mentioned, this is also a proposed change to the growth plan. The current growth plan shows area here designated as commercial, this as low-density residential, and this is proposed park. I understand that was originally going to be not exactly a park, but like a wind tower thing when this was kind of created, but it's identified as proposed park. The change would be here, this is remaining the same. The change would be to extend general commercial or commercial land use designation here and have the east side designated as industrial. The current zoning is agricultural, and then this little piece of limited industrial sort of hanging over from the op property on there. And then the proposed zoning that would go along with the proposed growth plan change would be as shown here. So just a note, north is on the right here. It's just easy to fit the plat on the page, apparently. So the lots here are zoned general commercial. They have conditional overlays, which is an additional layer of restrictions that becomes part of the zoning ordinance. That's actually part of the ordinance. As you read through your packet, there is an ordinance prepared by the city attorney's office that would include those points. So both the general commercial and the limited industrial have conditional overlays. 2 lots here are zoned PI, public and institutional. This one will eventually be owned by the city as a drainage basin, and this long, narrow lot 8 here is going to be dedicated to the Southeast Cass Water Resources District as protection for Drain 45, which is a requirement of our subdivision ordinance. The plat, again, looks the same without the zoning on it. The plat dedicates 44th Street North, connecting 40th Avenue up to here. Due to the size of this subdivision, 2 points of access are required for fire access, so it's got to connect up here. The road does not actually dead end in space here. There is an easement that will go across Southeast Cass's property to connect to 45th Street, so it's not just going to dead end here as it appears to on the plat. So the plat creates 15 lots there. The applicants, Trent Duda and Dr. Ronald Knutson, and their development team are with us tonight, may wish to address the commission, and also representatives from Prairie Estates neighborhood and the Riley's Acres area are with us here this evening, and I think both groups have a PowerPoint they wish to present. Before we get to the motion, just wanted to note that on projects like this that are adjacent to county drains, we work closely with the Southeast Cass Water Resources District, and we appreciate the cooperation of their managers and staff there at Southeast Cass who put in a lot of work on projects like this with us. The recommended motion is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, commissioners.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this zoning?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can I ask a question of staff before we go to this?
I suppose you could. We usually always public hearing and then go to that, but go ahead.
As you direct, sir.
I just want to clarify, Donald.
Yes, ma'am.
There was a change in lot 9
Yes,
from
ma'am.
the last time.
Yes,
I didn't hear that coming from
you are correct. You are correct. So lot 9, this was a point of discussion here, was originally zoned LI limited industrial in the first version. It is now zoned general commercial. Thank you for making that point, ma'am.
Hey guys, thanks for seeing me again. My name is Trent Duda with ARD Properties. Before I start, I want to clear up some misinformation that's in the packet. In 2014, there was a heavy industrial plant that was scheduled to be put by my house and by my neighbors, where I live in Horace, and we opposed this, and we opposed it because it was heavy industrial, and not light industrial. It had a rail spur coming in about 100 feet away from everybody's property, with rail shipments every week. That's different from light industrial, what we're trying to do here. And then a few years later, Visto Industrial Park was put in about the same distance as what we're doing, 1,000 feet away. And we did not oppose that at all, even though it had gravel roads. They weren't even paved roads in that industrial park. The park has gone in. It's a nice park, has lots of nice buildings, cabinet shops, the You Betcha buildings out there. It's light industrial. That's what they put in these light industrial parks nowadays. So just to clarify, I am okay with limited industrial going next to my property if it comes up again, but it's light industrial, not heavy industrial. I think the negotiations that we have had with the neighbors and me going on from LI I went from LI to GC. I cut that in half. I even went further and put that north one to GC. I put a berm in when I didn't have to put a berm in. We've met all the setbacks and far exceeded all the setbacks. So I've compromised. I've listened to the neighbors. I took out the crushed concrete when they didn't want the crushed concrete. I repeat again, we took out the crushed concrete, so there shouldn't be any more talk about this, but there still seems to be talk about the crushed concrete. I put in more trees. I even changed the berm since the last time we seen you guys. I made it a little bit better, a little bit more trees. Again, which isn't needed, but I did that again. We'll be showing you pictures of building and zoning where it's been done in the city with smaller distances and has been done in the order of putting in the houses first and then later adding light industrial, as in the development of Point West, which is west of the Coast Plant. That was put in 2006, that development was, and Coast Plant was put in 2014. And all that industrial, and that's less feet away than what I'm proposing, the light industrial. Also, the Stonebridge development was put in 1992, and then Fleet Farm, and all those were put in 1995. That was after again, so that was done after the fact. We're not asking for anything out of the norm. And how far this is away from the neighbors' lots, it's about twice. So if you guys know where Case New Holland, their plant is right next to Microsoft, and Microsoft, that's 500 feet away to Fox Run. We're 1,000 feet away, just about 968 feet away from their lot with their light industrial. So almost twice the distance of an interstate. The sitting planning department, your staff has approved this quite a few times. The planning and zoning approved this for the second time last time, or like a month ago, and that was 704 and 0 against. So they approved it again. I've changed it again on this time to accommodate some more with adding GC to the lot to the north to avoid having the LI leach into the future neighborhoods, which some on the Planning and Zoning Council wanted, and the City Commission. The 2024 Comprehensive Plan members have told the city planners that they are in line with their recommendations of LI and GC with what we're proposing here, not residential. So I ask you guys if you could approve this time, and I appreciate it.
Is there anybody else in the public wish to speak to this?
Tom Nelson. I'm representing Trent Duda. So we just got a little bit of a PowerPoint. I'll make it fast because Trent covered a lot of the things. I know your guys' time is valuable. So obviously it's just a map here in front. I wanted to just quick touch on zoning, LI, GC. I think there's been some confusion during the dialogue about what some of these things are and what can and can't be done there. So if there's questions as we go, there are some very much limiting things that are part of the overlay under each of these definitions. And again, we could go through the details, but obviously in the essence of time, you guys have this in your packet. With the overlays, there's a very much a limiting factor of what can and can't be done on any of the property. A number of the things that have been discussed or that have been talked about that there's concerns on really cannot be done on this property based on the overlay. So this is just a quick map showing, giving an indication of the distance that Trent was referring to. It shows 290 feet from the residential properties to the first GC lot and another 636 feet from there before we even are at the residential. So this is just a little bit of a blow up of it, just to give a visual of how far away the actual LI lots are, which lot 12, as indicated there, is an LI. Just again, to give some reference point to what I'm going to show you next. So an example, obviously, is that's how many football fields? 3. How many Fargo domes stacked end to end? Over 2. Is the distance to the LI. So just from a point of reference, Trent referenced a couple of different areas in town with measurements and distances on it. This is the Fleet Farm area. I'll do a zoom in a little bit just to get a little bit better idea. Yeah, the LI is the gray and the red is general commercial. Those are the distances to that development in that area. And it's been a very nice development. So this is a slide showing 1995 is when Fleet Farm was new. Stonebridge addition was already in process at that time. And it just gives a little reference to the distances for that. And this is today. And I think it kind of shows a good blend of things that worked. And I looked at the house values over about a 7 to 10 year period. I went back and there was, from the time this was built to when they were, and there wasn't any significant changes in the house values when you look at the resale market with the buffering and how things were done, which is again, is consistent with what ARD Properties is going to do here. So, and just an image of that back area again, behind Fleet Farm, again, giving an indication, so, of what things would look like or how they could work together. This is another area in town, the Rose Creek PKG contracting, showing just some distances of how close LI is to definitely houses in the area. You'll see a few measurements on there. Across University, 224 feet, 231 feet. When you go to the north, 835 feet, puts you into Rosewood development. And again, there's other measurements on here, but just to give some points of reference. And then this was also what Trent was referencing for Coast Materials, the distances from Coast and the timeframes of when that happened. Coast was put in 2014. The housing development was put in 2006. And then this is another example of out by Riley's Acres specifically, we have Laverne's Addition. And the very first lot that is LI to Riley's is 552 feet. Just to give again a point of reference, there's been no objection to LI being within that distance of Riley's Acres in the past, and those additions have been moving forward. And again, just to highlight that. And then just some overviews of the things going on in the area. It's a growing, bustling area. It's a part of Fargo where there's a lot going on. And there's going to continue to be a lot going on, which is good for Fargo. So, speaking of good things at Fargo, the tax benefit for property taxes, $875,000 to $1.4 million are the potential property tax revenues that could be created from this. Not to mention sales tax for the state, county, and city, job development for the region, helping expanding and kind of making more people home Fargo. Attracts new industries, technology corporations, and the like. So again, just highlighting, again, these are some of the types of buildings. I know there's been a lot of discussion about the kinds of industries that the neighborhood has been concerned about. Very consistent with, you know, kind of the buildings that are in this area. These are some of the buildings, and I did this through Google Images I wanted to share, in the Prairie View Estates. There's already basically commercial and LI buildings and businesses in there. So I'm going to make sure I point out that these are Google Images. So they were taken off of the internet. Contractors, all kinds of different businesses already happening in that area, which is currently, this isn't Riley's, but this is the Prairie Estates. This is a map of just some other businesses that are in that area. And then just a quick few shots of the kinds of buildings and things that we'll be trying to attract to this development. So in today's world, you know, the buildings that are being built are very architecturally pleasing. People are very mindful and try to look for quality type of buildings. And this is just an overview done showing, again, you know, kind of the layout of some of the buildings that could be on the property and, you know, how they would be set up. So, any questions? Again, we just wanted to give you guys some visuals for everybody. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Move the recommended motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mr. Strand?
Thank you, Mayor, and I'm not sure who can answer this. From the onset, my primary concern, and I'm not real familiar with experience with extraterritorial jurisdictions and neighbors, but I've been wanting to know, again, where does the leadership in Riley's Acres stand moment present relative to this Fargo movement in their next door to them?
Mayor, or Commissioner Stanford says, Mayor, there might be some more people who are going to testify there. I'm not sure that they didn't get up to the mic fast enough.
You just have to come to the podium.
Oh, I think there were.
Oh, I couldn't get through. I'm sorry. If you
Okay.
could make space for these people to get through, please, and we'll keep the public hearing open.
Commissioner Strand, may we come back to your question?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Paula Peterson, and I'm a resident of Prairie Estates at the Riley's Acres ETJ area and live along 45th Street North. On behalf of our entire community, I'm here to outline the objections that residents of the Riley's ETJ area, along with many residents from the city of Riley's Acres, have in regards to the zoning proposal. In a recent community poll done by the city of Riley's Acres, 265 people responded. The results indicate that 54% of the participants are opposed to limited industrial as a zoning option in the area that we're discussing. Riley's position on this was they did put this into a letter which is included in your packet. That has not changed. Those are the facts that they gathered from their own residents. During the public open house meeting held in January, we brought up many points of concerns and asks. However, it seems that there are still a few things that are very concerning to us. Our communities do not want limited industrial zoning. We stated that we would be more comfortable with general commercial zoning across all lots. Limited industrial zoning includes manufacturing and production. However, when you look at the conditional overlays, that is a very open list of any type of business. There is no control over this list, despite our asking for a more comprehensive review and exclusions to be outlined. Our concerns are not only with the types of manufacturing or production businesses, but the infrastructure that they may bring, such as higher trucking, delivery traffic, additional noise, additional traffic along County Road 20, and the environmental concerns as to what they may be producing. We have asked many times for examples and a vision for what types of businesses are actually going to go in here, and we have not gotten that. Both of the Planning Commission and City Commission in the past applications have asked the question, what is the long-term need for industrial in this area? When the original growth plan of 2007 came out and was created, Op and Patio World and Memory Fireworks were already there, yet the planning department still deemed as the best use was for residential. This does not seem to be enough strong evidence nor proof of demand for this in this area. We have also asked that the conditional overlay includes no finished or unfinished products. Finished is missing from the conditional overlay. A finished product could be a stockpile of sand that is ready for sale. If it is not documented, we cannot take someone's word that it would not happen. We have also asked for the adequate buffers, and we thank Trent for his concessions on that. We have also asked for a buffer along Lot 1 as well, but have not received that request. And that would be the lot closest to County Road 20. Will the approval adversely affect the condition or value of the property in the vicinity? They have marked this as criteria satisfied. However, the Planning Department has indicated that they have no documentation to demonstrate that the approval would affect the condition or property value in the vicinity. Yet we have provided to you quotes from real estate professionals that state that we would face up to a 25% decrease in market value because of what would be located across the road from us. This would be a decrease no matter whether it is an up or down market. We have, we've talked about this before. This is very concerning for us. Our properties have been there for almost 50 years. Our properties were designed for country living. We have space for hobbies such as horses, storing RV boats, restoring vehicles. We enjoy large gardens. We have wildlife such as bald eagles, deer, and fox. People like these types of landscapes and places to live because it does give them a little bit of breathing room, but yet be close enough to the cities that they need to. And Riley's Acres is also a growing city. So it's not just beyond the current Riley's Acres. You've got another development going into the west of us, and the city of Fargo themselves has stated the properties to the north of us would eventually be residential as well. There really are no current good examples of where the city of Fargo has put in industrial zoning right next to a residential area. There are other areas of the city that may have been designed for both types at the beginning, but with this project, you're coming in after existing residential. I would ask, what was the original zoning for the area of Fleet Farm? Did it change from residential to L1? Was it agriculture, or was it always designed that way? The Laverne addition by Riley's Acres was already zoned. There was no opportunity to object to that area either. We cannot change the past, but what we're trying to do is change the future to make this a neighborhood that everybody will enjoy. There is currently no updated growth plan to support this. There's been talk that there is one coming, but we have not seen the details. We would like the city of Fargo to consider being a good neighbor to us and doing the right thing. And remember that our objection really is to keep the limited industrial off of the zoning plan. Thank you.
Here's somebody else wish to speak.
Good evening. I'll make it really short. I'm Mark McAllister, so I'm chairman of Reed Township, so the township that surrounds. And I know you had an ET question. I can try to help with that if I can. But again, inside the township, we would like not to see industrial. There's residences all over the place. So I think if you're doing light commercial, or as long as it's the general, I think you can be okay. But in terms of major industrial or anything else, we've really worked hard with our zoning to make sure it doesn't happen inside the township.
What do you think the difference between general commercial and light industrial would be? What are you getting in there that you don't like?
I think when you start getting to the industrial, you start looking at a lot of heavy truck traffic, and you start looking at a lot of very heavy-duty manufacturing that probably does need to be closer to the normal Fargo Industrial Park or railroad spurs or the extra things. I think if you start looking at the lighter duty stuff in terms of like cabinet shops and this kind of stuff, you don't have a lot of businesses that have a lot of traffic. So like a lot of our residents that do businesses out of their homes, we have restrictions to make sure that they cannot have X number of people there. There cannot be cars out on the roads. You cannot do this, you cannot do that, in order to keep that limited to very small and no heavy traffic on most of the roads, because again, most of our roads are gravel. So it's about controlling that traffic control and the wear and tear on everything.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? If you're going to speak, come up to the podium.
Thank you guys for your time again today. I have 3 points that I will discuss on my opposition for this. The first is a lack of vision. The second is that there is no need shown for limited industrial. We do believe that general commercial is a better fit. And this is a whole new situation for everyone here. It isn't common, and we want to make sure that scrutiny is done when we make these decisions. So starting with the first one, lack of vision. The vision started out with concrete crushing, which we have shown isn't allowed close to our residential, so that was removed. This shifted to a statement that he didn't propose general commercial as it didn't fit what he had planned, but then we have no follow-up plan. Today, there is no plan. There's pictures, there's ideas, there's examples, but there has not been a plan put forth in front of us as to what type of businesses to attract or what not to attract. And it's that delta between general commercial and limited industrial is what we don't want. It's that manufacturing and that production. So that is our concern about why there isn't a plan. Being able to eventually, after being proposed as limited industrial, there's a lot more opportunity to change what that is versus what you say. So what you say versus what actually happens. For showing no need, this is a really big change from a very small, intensive, low to medium residential park to a very intensive general commercial and limited industrial. It's a big change, and for us, we see it as a big change without a vision. It's not part of a larger plan. There's not a whole lot that's known about it. The plan today doesn't match the existing growth plan, and a new growth plan has not been made available to us. Fargo isn't out of space for limited industrial. I sat later in the last meeting, and there was property annexed right off 19th Avenue North over by the railroad, which is prime industrial area. It is by other limited industrial areas, and right by the railroad track. So definitely another opportunity. Fargo is not out of spaces and looking for places to grow industrial. Per discussion by the commission last time, it is the responsibility of the landowner to develop property to the best possible manner for the neighboring communities. And I'm going to make it play in the word community. This will also be future Fargo residents. The property north of us will be part of Fargo, and you guys have stated that the intent is to do residential. It's also, today it's ag, so when I think of it, I know it might sound a little silly to some, but there's a pair of bald eagles that winter and summer there. According to the North Dakota DOT, during their planning for the Exit 69 changes that are happening in the future, they also have 2 threatened and endangered species that live in our area. So it's the people going from ag, very large, to something such as industrial. It's the people and the animals that are there. When we bring up property value, it feels like we've pretty much been ignored from our realtor's statement that anything for residential by general commercial and limited industrial will negatively impact values. Staff has come back saying there's no documentation to demonstrate it adversely affects adversely affects property. So for us, there's no plan, there's no need, and our concerns about our property values aren't being heard. Third, this is a new situation. The scrutiny piece is what I hold over. What I mean by that is the city has acknowledged that what we have is a rarely encountered situation. Large lots, rural residential, it's an ETJ of another city. Asking about examples, the closest one we've heard where it was planned to have planned to have something closer to limited industrial was Rocking Horse, and yet that example of Rocking Horse is actually general commercial. It's not limited industrial. So in closing, this isn't a cut and dry case. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here a year later talking to you guys again. This decision needs scrutiny for such a big change before it is made. So if this change does go through, we can't go back, right? So I see 2 options. We can go overboard with a big change to allow limited industrial, in essence dismissing our concerns, or listen to our concerns and go with a general commercial. Again, the delta between general commercial and limited industrial, the manufacturing production, is what our biggest concerns are. Thank you.
Maria Goryacheva. I am a resident of Riley's Acres, and I do have a presentation that I would like to use. Today I would like to talk about the conditional overlay. The application states that the GC and the LI lots, they each include a conditional overlay. Allow me to walk you through the conditional overlay. I will begin with lot 1. So the conditional overlay for lot 1 prohibits the crushing of any material and also the storage of concrete rubble. And then it also specifies the type of the material. It says unfinished product. In addition to all that, it also does not allow the storage of any crushed concrete. I think at this point it is really important for me to explain that the application classifies the construction materials into finished and unfinished. So let's look at this example. On the left, we're looking at the example of the unfinished product. This is what you usually see during any demolition or excavation. This is the concrete rubble. It could be the asphalt or any type of the material. What you actually sell is the things on the right side. You have to crush it before you can sell it. You sell it as a gravel, you sell it as a crushed concrete, you sell it as a crushed asphalt. It could be of different size, of different type, and so on and so forth. I'll emphasize it again. The Lot 1 prohibits both, whether finished or unfinished. So we are looking at Lot 1, and that's that little square on the top. What about the remaining lots? Let me walk you through it. The conditional overlay for all of the lots that are currently proposed to be GC, it only prohibits crushing and the storage of unfinished product. What about the remaining LI lots? Same. It's crushing and the storage of unfinished product. In other words, anything that is crushed that actually has a value for retail is allowed. I'll show you examples of this. This is allowed on every single lot except the Lot 1. This is allowed. This is allowed. That is also allowed. Now, I think I've already disclosed so much science behind the fugitive dust. We are all aware with the fact that fugitive dust is linked to various types of cancer. You can't expose residents to fugitive dust. Now, fugitive dust is present in any scenario in which you have a source for the dust. That includes, and I'm showing 3 separate processes, the crushing itself, the transportation, and the storage. I would like to take a step back and actually look at the developer and his current business. The services that he's offering include excavation, concrete, sand and gravel, hauling, and demolition. Now I'll show you just the images from his website, and I'm sure some of you will probably spot a lot of unfinished product. It would be very natural for him to expand his business by taking this unfinished product, crush it, and then he needs a space to sell it somewhere, right? So taking into the consideration the nature of excavating business and the conditional overlay that I just walked you through, the future of this land will look like this. For one simple reason, because it is allowed. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hello, everyone. My name is Joshua Morell. I'm a North Dakota licensed physician, a board-certified radiologist, currently working at the Veterans Hospital here in Fargo. I also serve as chairman for the University of North Dakota Department of Radiology. Take a look at the screen here. This is the proposition from last fall, which was rejected by the commission. And the current proposition and a juxtaposition of the differences. I felt it important to put this up here and leave it up as I discussed so that we can see how minimal it has been changed in the interim. First, as a Riley's resident, I want to make it clear that the city of Riley's is strongly opposed to this proposal. I personally met with our mayor to discuss this sentiment, and that position can be further explained by a letter in your packet, which is authored by Mayor Shane Munson. Some examples include, quote, the majority of residents are opposed to limited industrial zoning as an option. The city believes that all general commercial plan aligns more closely with the preferences and concerns of the residents. This option addresses worries about potential impacts on home values, quality of life, environmental impacts, safety challenges, and the nature of the businesses that might occupy the area, end quote. Moving on, I have personally stood before you many times and attested to the dangerous health consequences of prolonged proximity to industrial operations. We started with cement crushing, and by this point, it should be evident to everyone how dangerous fugitive dust is to human and environmental health. That is the reason cement crushing was eliminated. No one here is questioning that at this point. Well, the exact same risk remains on the proposal. We need to clear up the confusion. The storage of excavation material will result in fugitive dust, just as crushing of cement will. For our discussion, cement crushing and storage of excavation material are essentially equivalent. They both generate dangerous fugitive dust. Well, as Maria has pointed out, the conditional overlay allows for the storage of excavation material in the form of finished product. And that was already highlighted, so I'll just pass through that. So what will the result be? The result will be piles of rubble, which will become fugitive dust and harm everything around it. How are you going to buffer against this fugitive dust? I do not mean that as a rhetorical question. If anyone here can explain to me how you plan to buffer against the fugitive dust, I would like to know. Limited industrial zoning opens the door for such a wide array of potential harms. It will be difficult to control, to monitor, or regulate. Trent's team have tried to deceive us with propositions of nice-looking buildings and examples of unharmful practices. Let me be clear here, no one is worried about a nice-looking building. No one is worried about a duck decoy business. We are worried about real industrial consequences. We are worried about fugitive dust. We are worried about getting cancer. We are worried about getting pulmonary fibrosis. In 2014, Trent Duda publicly stood officially against industrial development occurring near his house. He may retroactively split hairs about the level of industrial which was occurring, but what happened happened. He was clearly aware of the danger that can come with this type of zoning. Trent was protesting just as we, the citizens, are now. I guess ethics go out the window when there's money to be made. Further on the point of ethics, there are a couple residents of Riley's who have personal and business connections with Trent who have publicly stated their approval. It should be obvious to us all why those statements are invalid. I also want to make note that your current packets are vastly incomplete, given that the majority of the previous packet is not carried forward. Many prior letters and pieces of evidence are thus omitted. So, that all being said, let me wrap this up. Let's look at this from another angle. Let's be pragmatic. This proposition is minimally changed from its prior rejection. Residential neighborhoods are expanding both to the north and west of the land in question. This will be an isolated island of industrial land. This proposition is against the North Fargo growth plan. It is against the analysis for housing need. It will negatively impact large North Fargo businesses such as the VA and NDSU. It will also negatively impact the growth of North Fargo schools. The proposition is against being a good neighbor to the city of Riley's Acres. This proposition is against the health and prosperity of the people. Commissioner Kolpak, when you said, quote, "My understanding that there was never a promise of zoning change with the developer. Again, that's a risk," end quote. Did the Planning Commission take this into consideration? Deputy Mayor Preston, when you said, quote, "Has there ever been an analysis for what the needs are for industrial land inside the city limits as we grow? My concern is that without looking at the bigger picture, is this amendment appropriate? Who wants an isolated piece of industrial here if the rest of it actually ends up being something else? Industrial is not appropriate next to residential, and what I mean by residential is the growth plan projects residential to the north," end quote. Did the Planning Commission respect your opinion about this alignment? Commissioner Pepcorn, when you said, quote, "Riley's Acres, those people, when they built out there, they knew they were taking a risk because they're not part of the city of Fargo. However, we have to be good neighbors to them, and common sense says you don't put industrial next to residential. We would never do that in the city of Fargo," end quote. Did the Planning Commission respect that view? Commissioner Strand, you said this in the context of the Riley's government being opposed to the proposition, quote, "How would we feel if someone next to our territory was developing and proposing changes and overlays that wouldn't fit the vision of our city? Would we feel good about doing that against our desires? I think we need to be good neighbors, like we expect the people to be good neighbors to us. You know, if we have folks upstream that are so impacted, I just cannot imagine us not giving the highest regard to their needs," end quote. Did the Planning Commission take your stance into consideration? Mayor Mahoney, when you said, "I think we would want it to match up a little more with the growth plan. it may need to take the concerns of the public into that consideration. Did the Planning Commission do what you asked? I'll end. Approving this proposition will be in aggressive contradiction to the growth plan and the precedent established by the City Commission. I thank you all for your time and your consideration.
Got one left here.
Mayor and Commissioners, my name is Ron Knutson. I'm one of the owners of the land under discussion in the platting of the Interstate Business District. I also own the Memory Fireworks Building. We've had that building for about 25 years, and hopefully we've been good neighbors. I want to maintain that good neighborhood status. I looked at what Trent was doing with this when I sold him the land, and there were some things that I had some concerns about. I'm a developer and been doing some development in Bismarck for 40 years and around the city, state. And so I understand developing is a little bit like hitting a golf ball. There's always somebody that's going to like that golf shot, and there's always somebody that's going to hate it. And the same thing goes for development. Somebody's going to like it and somebody's not. You can't seem to please everybody all the time. But I would say, as an owner of 40 acres to the south of this, I'm extremely satisfied and impressed with how hard the city and Trent Duda has worked to establish himself as a good neighbor. He's taken away heavy industrial uses. He's not putting in a railroad track alongside of this. He's down-zoned a lot of things to light industrial. He's taken industrial away from the neighborhood. I think he's done above and beyond what anybody should have to do. It's cost him probably hundreds of thousands of dollars and a lot of time to do that, but I think he's done the right thing, and I applaud his efforts. And I, like the Zoning and Planning Committee, which voted 7-0 to pass this, would hope that the mayor and commissioners would give an understanding to a guy that's done this. So I take any questions, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Close public hearing. Do we have a motion?
I think we already did that.
We do?
We did.
Okay.
If I could,
Any further discussion?
Donald, can you address the finished versus unfinished product?
In what way, Mayor? What the difference is between them?
Does the conditional overlay avoid the piles of whatever, crushed concrete?
Can you just give me a minute to go forward in the slides? Hang on here. I had some backup slides here.
And
I think it's the
while
same
you're
as Dr.
doing that-
Goryacheva has, but yes, ma'am.
While you're doing that, I can also address the issue of changing Lot 9 to GC. That was one of my concerns, and it's basically related to the LI was bumping up against potential residential that might happen in the future there. So, and it was also, I guess my concern was that op construction, what they're doing there would bleed down into this particular lot. So even though it was just one lot change, it's significant in my mind. Anyway.
Okay, so yes, so just to go, basically to recap what Dr. Goryacheva, did I say that right? Pointed out here. So on the limited industrial, you're looking at this phrase here, and I think her point there is that when you just went to the original lot here, what this means is you have to read the whole thing here. Off-street parking, loading, and vehicular circulation areas and outdoor storage shall have an all-weather surface. No gravel, crushed concrete, or similar material is permitted as a surface for the parking, loading, and circulation areas. That's what that's referring to. And so I see, if you read it, I can see how you could read it in more than one way, but this item relates to what you can surface your parking, loading, and vehicle circulation areas with. So this phrase, if I don't mean to interrupt, ma'am, this phrase here is in every one of those. It's there, and it's there. The reason that this phrase is not in the LI is because this is a general commercial zone property.
My question is more related to, in the GC zone, or in the LI zone, will they see piles of crushed concrete?
So-
Could they see?
I suppose they could, ma'am. The developer knows more what he's going to stab.
So the conditional overlay does not restrict the
It does not
storage
restrict
of-
finished product. You are correct, ma'am.
I'm sorry?
It does not restrict the finished product, as the opponents pointed out.
Okay.
You are correct.
I'm sorry, did we miss you in the public hearing?
Yep. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jeff Oden. I built a brand new house in 2017. I am a resident of Riley's Acres. My property is probably one of the closest to this development. I think most of the people that spoke were part of Prairie. I'm on the south side in the 9th edition. My family, we see really no issues with the work that they've done to change. We don't see any issues with air quality or our property values. It's definitely not an issue. The property values are strong there. As far as like the setbacks and stuff, I've been in shops all my life. I've worked in automotive industry. I've worked in manufacturing. What I've seen on this graph here is probably really normal to what I've seen in my life as far as setbacks and distances. Actually, it's probably a little lucrative. The closest one is 1,000 feet from property line of a resident to light industrial, not heavy. If it was heavy, I'd be totally against this, but it's light industrial, and I think it's normal, and I think it's adequate. So that's all I got.
Okay, and was there one more in the back there? No, sir?
My name's Dennis Hoy. I live on County Road 20 in Riley's Acres. We built about 5 years ago out there. As far as noise, I lived in South Fargo. I heard the airplanes. I heard the semis on I-94. I heard the races out at West Fargo. And I heard the trains. And I still hear them today. So I'm used to that. But I have a business not too far from there. So we figured it was a good place to build a retirement home, my wife and I. And we're 100% for Trent on this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I got everybody? Right, we're okay? Okay, close public hearing. Any other discussion on the project?
Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Kolpak?
Yes, if I could address Donald
Yes, ma'am.
with a question. Can you speak to the concern that this is not aligned with the growth plan vision? In your presentation, you shared that the Planning Commission does see this as aligned to the growth plan.
Well, it's only aligned to the growth plan when you go through the amendment process, ma'am. So currently, as was pointed out by all sides here, I'll go back to my graphic here, that currently, as we know, the commercial designated property here isn't changing. But this is the concern, area of concern here, from obviously a very low intensity type of development to, with the commercial and especially with the industrial, definitely higher intensity part of development. So part of what is before you is a growth plan amendment, and in your packet are included findings, and the folks who testified have commented on those findings as whether they adequately support whether this growth plan adequately support the proposed change in the growth plan.
Okay.
So this growth plan amendments of various kinds have been before your commission many times. And sometimes you approved them and sometimes not. So does that help you out there, ma'am?
Thank you.
Mr. Strand?
Thank you, Mayor. I have three points to explore.
Yes, sir.
One of them, Donald, I've been wondering, we have all these criteria is met, criteria not met. A suggestion I would have going forward, because it doesn't, to my knowledge, exist now, will be to setting up and establish for extraterritorial jurisdictions a criteria that we gauge, which tells us whether or not neighboring jurisdictional leaders are in favor or not of what will be next to them. We don't have that criteria now.
You are correct, sir.
So I would like us to add that or explore adding that criteria for extraterritorial developments in the future. Number two, Mr. Amundsen, the mayor, wrote a letter January 19th pretty clearly one more time opposing this. Is that still their position to our knowledge?
I have not heard anything further from Mayor Amundson, sir, and I don't know if any Riley's Acres commissioners are with us tonight. No, they were notified of this hearing. I do contact Nick Miller,
So at this point, their official position to us is that they officially oppose this.
apparently so, sir,
Okay,
yes.
my third point is, like to know from the developers, it seems pretty clear that if this was just entirely a general commercial zoning project, everybody would probably say, go for it. But the inclusion of limited industrial seems to be the hurdle to the project. Would these developers, if it were rejected and at the way it is, would they come back to us with a general commercial development entirely? I'd like to know if they would or wouldn't.
I don't know, sir. You'd have to ask Mr. Duda what he has in mind.
Could they answer that? You would not? Go to the microphone, please. I think this is an important issue.
No, I would not, because I think the general commercial lots right now are going to be harder to move, as we've seen in the city. As for, and it doesn't matter what we keep, they didn't want general commercial up until 3 months ago. So they keep moving their goalpost. So they did not want general commercial, they didn't want heavy industrial, they just wanted residential in a park. Residential's not gonna work. So, the only thing that we could do is something really high density in there. Nobody wants that in their own mayors. And if it was that important to the city of Riley's Acres that they wanted to oppose it, you think that their commissioners would be here. So, and they're not here. So I don't know why they wouldn't be here if they oppose it that much. As for the crushed concrete piles, there will not be any rubble of crushed concrete or of crushable concrete. So no piles of concrete or asphalt that can be crushed there. It'll just be a finished product. Let's say a landscaper goes up there and is gonna have a landscaping company. They can't, they need a pile of crushed concrete or gravel or mulch, something like that, of a finished product. So it could be multiple different things.
Any other questions? Mr. Strand?
I'm done, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Roll call vote, please.
Preston,
Aye.
Kolpak,
Aye.
Strand,
No.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. Shelley, you still okay to go ahead? Make it? Okay. Public hearing 46, the plat of Alex First Edition. Donald Crest to explain.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Item 46 is Alex's First Edition. It is a plat of this property here that you probably are familiar with. Just located 52nd Avenue South, I-29, our landmark Walmart, and the development here, the Holiday Store and the Aldi. This has been undeveloped for some time. In the planning department, we've received several questions on this over the years. I know it was supposed to be a couple of different things, but the plat here, a vacant lot, this is 51st Avenue South here, and the plat depicts an internal street known as Alexander Drive South, a dedicated public street, which will connect to 51st, go across the subdivision and connect to 38th. This is standing 38th Street here, looking the other way, looking south. As you see, it's just a large undeveloped field. The current zoning is GC General Commercial with a conditional overlay, and no zone change is proposed. This is the plat here, just 2 blocks, 3 lots for commercial development. I don't know if the developer, I know they're working on one of these lots where they had a proposal for one of these lots, but this is the proposed layout on this one. And Commissioners, there's a note in your staff report on some history of this one. This might look familiar to you because we had an odd dealing with the county recorder's office regarding the plat name. So this is really the same plat you've seen before as CC's First Edition, just coming through again with a different name, a situation we rarely run into. We had one several years ago. But anyway, the applicant's representative, Tanner Brandt of Christensen Companies, is with us tonight. Oh, there he is, okay. and may wish to address the commission. The Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, Commissioners.
Anyone present wishes to speak to this plat change?
Yeah, Tanner Brandt with Christensen Companies here. Just here to answer any questions. Nothing to add.
Well, commissioners always like to know what are you going to put in there, Target, Walmart, anything big, or do you have any plans for what you're going to put in the space?
I am not aware of any of the future plans.
You don't have anything lined up now? Okay. Anybody else present wish to speak to this? Not a closed public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston,
Aye.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Kolpak,
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Donald. A nice sweater, by the way, after St. Patrick's Day. Appreciate that.
Well, this is the last one of the season, sir. Tomorrow's the first day of spring, so.
You have high hopes. It was cold out today. 47, application filed by Border States Industrials for payment in lieu of tax pilot for a project located at 3181, 3101, and 3303 43rd Street North, and which the applicant will use primarily for distribution center. Jim Gilmore to explain.
Thank you. As you noted, this is an application from Border States Industries. It's for a 10-year property tax exemption at 100%. They're proposing to build a 350,000 square foot distribution center at this location. You can see on the map up north of 19th Avenue and west of the interstate. I'll have Ryan Oshheim, a representative from Border States, come up and tell us about this project. This is a major investment, probably over $42 million investment at this particular site. Ryan?
Thanks, Jim. Mayor Mahoney, members of the commission. Ryan Oshheim with the Greater Fargo Moorhead Economic Development Corporation. Just here to speak on behalf of the project and introduce James Sipe, Executive Vice President of Supply Chain for Border States. But before I introduce James, I just wanted to mention and kind of reinforce Jim's comments on the kind of size and gravity of this project. It's represents a major investment in this market. I did look at kind of a listing of our projects over the last 5 years. This is the fourth largest project that we've worked on out of 132 total projects, with equipment and other investment in addition to the construction build out, just over $46 million in capital investment, 350,000 square foot facility, 60 new good paying jobs. Border States, by the way, is one of the top 100 largest employee-owned companies in the country, ESOP organization. So a lot of opportunity for upward mobility and ownership in the company. This project, in addition to that, is kind of the first, and James will tell you about this, as part of their model for distribution across their entire national footprint. This facility will serve 28 branch locations across 7 states. So we're really excited about this project. We're excited about the investment that this represents for our region. I will say this is a very competitive project, so we are in competition with at least one other market that our market represents some significant competitive challenges as it relates to some of the extraordinary costs of this property. And so this pilot helps offset that and makes this project more palatable and puts us in a more competitive position to win this project. So with that, I will introduce James Sipe to talk a little bit about Border States and this project.
Thank you. So as mentioned, I'm James Sipe, and I am the leader of the supply chain organization for Border States, and I'm representing this proposal. First, thank you for allowing us to bring this forward. Touch a little bit on Border States. So Border States was established in 1952 in Grand Forks, North Dakota. Currently have our headquarters here in Fargo. We're an electrical wholesale distributor, and we serve the industrial, construction, and utility markets. We currently have 120 branch locations across the country representing 29 states, and we have 8 locations in North Dakota. We are 100% employee-owned, one of the largest employee-owned companies in the United States. And just recently, we surpassed $4 billion in annual revenue, which equates to about a 23% CAGR for the last 20 years. So with that unprecedented growth, we're transforming our supply chain and we're introducing our first distribution center within the country. We'd like to make it here in Fargo, North Dakota, because our roots are strong here in terms of our history. With this first distribution center, we're going to have about 350,000 square feet, and we'll have roughly $30 million worth of inventory that we'll manage in that location. There's about 60 full-time employees that are estimated for day one, with the potential to grow to 70 or more by year 7. Majority of the roles will be full-time, and those individuals will have an opportunity to be employee owners. Our targeted opening date is late fall of 2025 or early 2026. So maybe just a couple final comments before I open up for questions. The first is we are exploring other locations, one outside of the state of North Dakota. And we have a fiduciary responsibility to our employee owners as well as our customers. And with the current special assessment, it is actually more than the cost of the land. And with the assessment that exists today, I would tell you that it would not be a competitive location for us to consider. So hopefully this has given you a little bit of a background, open for any questions.
Any questions? And really, the specials is part of that. That was the 19th Avenue, Jim, that we put in that space, and that's what makes it a little inhibiting for people to come in?
Yeah, actually, after COVID, construction costs went up. I could have Tom tell you what it costs per square foot for streets, sewer, water. The specials for this land north of this line, this is the second phase that went in. We're almost, in some cases, close to double what they were down here. And so just that rapid cost increase as labor, materials, plus interest rates on the specials went up, was just sort of a worst case on almost everything in terms of the cost. So that's what made it so expensive. Again, we're kind of concerned, and one of the reasons where the committee is recommending a 10-year property tax exemption, that full 10 years, is that there are other locations that have far, far less specials to address. But we certainly appreciate the Board of States is still willing to take a look at Fargo. And
the pilot helps to make it more competitive.
Yeah, this probably doesn't get it even, but it gets us close enough that we hope there'll be other advantages for them to be in Fargo.
Okay. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this pilot? Anybody present wanting to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, just want to add a couple things real quick. First of all, Border States, their corporate headquarters is here, so that's a great thing. And so I do look at this as different than, we were talking about this earlier today, large corporations, they can decide to come and go. Border States, they're going to be here. And so I do think that gives us a little bit of an advantage. And I think this is obviously a new distribution thing. And I think that having that here is good for them and good for us. And hopefully it grows and maybe they'll come back with a larger expansion down the road. And so I do think this is a good thing for our city. And we are in competition. Some of them are close by and some of them aren't. And so I think we have to be cognizant of that. And I do think this is also a warning sign. Our specials are out of control. And so we need to do something. This is just one case. This is, we need to start addressing that overall, because it's an issue not just for Border States, but for the future home building and everything. We need to start looking at that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
If we look at the scores, a lot of times the public doesn't see this, but it scores at 145, and that's more than adequate for something to score. And I think the county has to remember it takes 10 years because of the pricing to keep competitive. That 10 years is critical for this as well. Any other comments or discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Nicole, are we ready for this? You want a break, or is the team ready? It's up to you. Commissioner, are you ready to go ahead? We're going to have the growth plan explained, and I don't want you tired or worn out when this part comes. Are you okay to go?
Let's keep going.
Shelley, you can hold up? Okay, well, I don't like to push you, but We have been looking forward for this for quite some time. It's the growth plan of 2024. Our consultants have spent a lot of work and effort in getting this ready for us, and this is a blush of what is to come in our growth as we go forward. I think it's an excellent plan afoot to have for the limited space the city eventually will have, and it helps to guide us into the future. Thank you.
Great. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. We're excited to have the CZB consultant team with us today. It's been a long time coming. We've been talking about growth planning for quite a while. And so we did the RFP last year, and they kicked off in February 2023. And now we're nearing the end as all the pieces come together. And before we do a public release of the draft plan and recommendations, with the CZB team in town this week to work mostly for workshop meetings with staff. We thought they were here on a city commission night, so it would be a great opportunity to have CZB give you a quick highlight on where we're at currently. We have Pete Lombardi with the CZB team, and then we have Charles Buki and Thomas Eddington here to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you, Nicole, and thank you, commissioners, for having us here to present this update here. What we'll do is provide just a minute or so of basic project process updates, and then give you a preview of core concepts that are emerging in the draft plan that is on the verge of release to stakeholders for review and comment. If you recall, back in December, we had a series of stakeholder meetings where we released a preferred growth scenario, which was the culmination of engagement work done throughout 2023, including 2 online surveys that were out for a month, 2 rounds of open houses, working with an advisory committee, working with our technical advisory team, doing other stakeholder work. And basically this preferred growth scenario, which has been up on the website now for a couple of months, distilled where Fargo wants to grow and how Fargo wants to grow. And the crux of that really turned out to be that in terms of where, Fargo would like to see less growth in the future happening in greenfield areas. Still a majority of the growth happening there, but less growth than has been happening there in the previous 10 or 20 years, and more growth focused inward toward existing parts of Fargo that have already been developed. So this slide just has a couple of screenshots of that document, a little more on that later. But that preferred growth scenario is really the basis of the work that our team has been doing now since early December on pulling together a full draft of the plan. We have pulled together that full draft, and right now it's undergoing review and edits by our full consulting team, including some sub-consultants who are doing specialized analysis on finance, on engineering, and on the land development code. And so, as Nicole mentioned, a full draft will be ready for stakeholder review and comment by early April. But what we'd like to do is give you a preview of these core concepts. The plan structure that the public and all of you will see when the plan is available is a simple 3-part structure. One, a compilation of Fargo's growth history, the key patterns and trends that are influencing Fargo as it plans for the future right now. The second part is the intentions for future growth, which represents really that preferred growth scenario that we presented in December. And then part 3 is the implementation plan for that preferred growth scenario. And really the new content for folks on our visit this week is really that part 3, the implementation plan. And there are really 3 parts of this plan that you'll notice when you review the draft plan. One part is what we're calling guide rails for yes. The part of the implementation plan that makes it crystal clear what Fargo can say yes to, tied to its intentions for growth. The second part is identifying what would be considered optimal growth in Fargo going forward based on its intentions for growth. And those 2 pieces will combine to influence the final part of part 3, which is recommendations for land development code updates, recommendations for financial and economic development practice updates, and then some guidance on coordinating public infrastructure and public facility investments. Again, that all will put Fargo on a path to achieving its intended growth patterns. So we'll just do a little summary of these main pieces here. The guide rails for yes has two parts to it. One part is an emphasis on the importance of by right development going forward, having crystal clarity about the city's growth intentions and linking the updated land development code so clearly to those intentions that the vast majority of development that occurs by, say, 2028, 2029, 2030 will be occurring by right. They will check the boxes that indicate that they are aligned with the city's growth intentions and will receive automatic administrative approval. So it will be a simplified process because it is clearly communicated to developers, to neighbors, to everyone in the community what exactly Fargo can say yes to, and the code meets that. Economic incentive programs meet that definition of what the city, how the city intends to grow. So it will create the conditions where by right development will be the rule, really, rather than the exception. You'll have very much fewer negotiated approvals and discretionary reviews taking place. It'll be a more predictable and transparent process overall, but the conditions for that have to be in place. Part of the conditions for that are the second part of the guide rails for yes, having very clear context-sensitive expectations for Fargo's growth. So having the growth plan at a certain altitude and then the land development code at an even lower altitude, making it very clear what qualifies for yes in different contexts, whether it's downtown, in the ETJ, the core neighborhoods, and everywhere in between. And so when the growth plan is properly implemented, kind of what Fargo can say yes to will be tied to very clear growth intentions for specific settings. Part of the context-sensitive expectations that are part of the draft that we're building out is an urban-rural transect that you'll see in the image on this slide. This is a planning idea that has been used across the country now for going on 25, 30 years that really helps to guide the types, the different place types that exist within a community, from the rural edge to the more intense urbanized core, from T1 to T6, as you'll see on this chart here. And part of what we're building off of in part 3 of this plan is identifying what are the specific place types that exist in Fargo now, and what are the future place types that you want to see in Fargo that match your growth intentions, and how do they line up with this idea of the urban to rural transect. So this image right here, the white boxes below that transect image, shows the different place types that we've outlining at this point in the draft plan. Your downtown core under that T6. At the very bottom, you'll see growth centers, which I'll have more to say about in just a minute, which cover sort of the middle areas on the transect. But the overall goal here with these future place types, as you'll see on this slide here, is less emphasis on land use and more emphasis on what type of place are you trying to create. So uses are part of that story, but so are, kind of overall density and form, transportation and infrastructure that will contribute to that development of that place type. This here is an example of the urban neighborhood type, but the draft plan will have the description and full details for each of the different place types that are being proposed for the city of Fargo. In addition to that place typology, the context-sensitive expectations in the implementation plan will have two additional models. One, something we're calling the growth grid model for greenfield growth going forward, and then the growth centers as a model for future infill and redevelopment, where Fargo will be targeting much of its growth that happens in existing parts of Fargo. The growth grid model is really designed off of the township and range survey system that has influenced development in North Dakota for over a century. There's actually a pattern going from the core neighborhoods to your newest suburban neighborhoods, where you have 1 mile by 1 mile blocks that sort of edge outward into the perimeter of the city. And so part of this growth grid is embracing that very familiar model, but creating a very clear and orderly sequencing of those blocks in the south ETJ, in the north ETJ, having very clear spaces defined for future mixed-use commercial centers as part of that outward growth, and then having a sequencing process recommended so that Fargo grows in an orderly fashion out to the south and up into the north. So part of that draft is identifying what this growth grid means for how Fargo will grow on the edges. And then the growth centers supplemental model identifies three types of centers in existing parts of Fargo: regional centers, community centers, and neighborhood centers that are different scales. Regional centers would be your major focus for employment acres and higher density mixed use development, and then your community and neighborhood centers would serve more localized uses. But the focus here would be to try to have as much infill and redevelopment going forward happening in designated centers rather than sprawling out along corridors and just focusing growth in more targeted areas gives you a higher probability of having vibrant, walkable, mixed-use communities develop that serve the existing surrounding neighborhoods. So those are the guide rails for yes that are part of the implementation plan. And those are connected to this idea of promoting optimal growth. So the guide rails for yes make it very clear what Fargo will say yes to. Promoting optimal growth is this connected idea that goes a step further. And basically what this slide shows is the draft will have a layering grid that shows what types of growth are completely unacceptable by the standards of this growth plan, completely contrary to Fargo's intentions for growth. You can't say yes to it, and it shouldn't be allowed by right. Above that line, there's going to be a lot of room to say yes to things, something that might be merely acceptable, things that might be good, and then the most pains will go into defining what can really be optimal blue ribbon growth for Fargo going forward. And the importance of defining optimal is that optimal is where the city will train most of its incentive energy going forward. You'll really focus on making it very clear to everyone in the community, making it clear to all developers that this is the absolute optimal form of development in your greenfield, in your infill and redevelopment areas, and having the incentives, the infrastructure investment resources available to help private developers meet that very high standard in your greenfields and in your infill areas. So defining optimal means it conforms with the future place types that are part of the plan. If it's in a greenfield area, it conforms with that idea of orderly growth in the growth grid. If it's redevelopment, it's part of a designated growth center. And an important distinction about what really makes optimal is that it should provide a tangible public benefit, which will depend on exactly where the development is. It could be mixed use or affordable housing as part of a development. It could be open space. It could be a public amenity that's relevant to the place type that you're trying to create. But the goal is that you're really supporting actively with incentives something that provides a tangible public benefit, and that will make it easier to know what you incentivize, what you don't incentivize, what could happen regardless and get a by right yes, but wouldn't necessarily be incentivized. So all of that will inform the final part of the growth plan, part 3, which are tools, policies, and processes. So there'll be clear recommendations to guide the updating of the land development code. That'll be an important step after adoption of the growth plan. Recommendations for financial and economic development practices, and then guidance for processes within City Hall to evaluate future development and how it stands up against the frameworks provided by the plan, as well as guidance on how to coordinate with all of Fargo's partners on park development, school facilities, infrastructure, transportation, all of the things that require more than just the City of Fargo, but require all of its partners to be on the same page in terms of what Fargo intends to do in terms of its growth. So our next steps are to continue edits on the full draft and prepare to distribute it to stakeholders and the community for review and comment in early April. And then as feedback gets gathered from all sources, we'll be working to fine tune, especially the definitions and concepts that are part of this, because there's a lot of work to do with staff, with the community to really crisply define what is optimal and what are the right place types for the community. But we're excited to get the draft in front of everyone to begin to react to it. Nicole?
So I know you're all hearing this for the first time. The public's hearing this for the first time as well. And so for the next few days, staff's really going to be working with the consultants from all departments as part of our permitting processes, things like that, to really understand how these components would work together. So staff will have some recommendations, and then we'll work to more fully flesh out all of these details with you directly as commissioners and with the public as well. We're here to answer any questions.
If any of the commissioners wanted to just meet them briefly sometime
Absolutely.
this week, would that work?
You know how to reach out to me. If you have some time within the next 2 days, I know this is short notice, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, we'll be in touch with you as we have more information to share.
Thank you. Very good. Any comments?
Mr.
Mr. Preston?
When and how will the full draft be distributed?
We're still working on the when, and then actually those are details we're still working on this week.
So could you go back one slide here? The tools, policies, and processes, is that going to also be in the draft?
At a high level as well, yes.
Okay, so not specific strategies.
No, I think, Dina, if you remember, I think some of you have met with some of our sub-consultants. They have some recommendations, what they are seeing based on their analysis, and they're fleshing that out right now with the CZB team and with staff. If those findings are, how those findings hit the other components.
Commissioner Strand?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm particularly intrigued by the graphic that shows us the Fargo footprint of the future. You know, that image that you're incorporating into all of these will be embedded into all of our planning and all of our thoughts into our future, and it won't change. That's our boundary going forward. So that's just really intriguing to see that. My question is theoretical. I don't know where the future is going to be for housing. Will it be apartments? Will it be ownership? Will it be single family? I don't know where the economy is going to go. It's my sense that in Fargo, since about 1988 or so, we have changed from being predominantly single-family home owners to predominantly rentals. And the number approaches 60% on either side of that equation.
Yeah.
Down the road, as this unfolds, what will we have? What would you anticipate our mix of home ownership to rentals will be? And what are we trying to get to?
Yeah. Well, we've actually included some new analysis in part one of our draft, looking at the types of households that are most likely to boost demand for rentals and the types of households that are most likely to boost demand for home ownership. And what we show is that not just in the city of Fargo, but also in West Fargo and Horace, in the whole region there, and this is demographic trend nationwide. You see kind of an acceleration in the number of households, for the most part, single person households that drive demand for rental units. So part of the reason why, you know, in most parts of the country, you've seen a rise in rental units, especially over the last 10 or 15 years, is really driven by demographics and the rise of especially single-person households or senior households that are downsizing, and we would expect that those numbers are going to keep sort of moving in that direction at least over the next 10 years. So I would say that the chances of beginning to, you know, kind of either stabilize or move the home ownership rate in Fargo back to a position where it's on the rise, that you're probably a few decades off from doing that, purely from a demographic standpoint of, you know, having growth in the number and the types of households that would be in a position to buy homes because they're in that stage in life, you know, young married couples or young families. For any city, then, I think the challenge and something that this growth plan can help do is provide direction on how to have flexibility so that your housing market can respond to the nature of demand at any given time. And I think the place type framework helps on that front, because you're getting away from being very, single family zoning and multifamily zoning and sort of, having it very prescribed like that. And you're thinking more holistically about, in a certain place type, having a combination of singles, twos, threes, fours, all makes sense. So the more diversity and flexibility that you're able to build into your regulatory system for the housing market, I think the better housing builders and the better the housing market can provide what the market needs at any given time. And that takes pressure off of trying to predict, because you really can't. You can have best guesses, but you can't predict with precision what types of housing you should have in 10 years. So flexibility is really important.
Thank you.
Here are the questions or comments.
If I may, Mayor, I thought of a better answer for Commissioner Preston. In just that Pete had presented, in a couple weeks, we'll have a more formal release, if you will, in seeking public comments to our stakeholders and some email and press releases. But then what we're doing right now is, over the next 2 days, we'll be able to map out what the next 12 weeks look like for turning out those recommendations. Right now, we're testing and pulling some of the analysis on certain cases and applications. And as we have every day, we're getting new growth applications for our rumblings, if you will, from developers and landowners who have ideas. And so we're kind of testing some of the findings so far and seeing how those apply. And then we'll be a little bit more confident. We met with the Home Builders Association, or the BIA, earlier today, so introduced some of these components to them. And we'll meet with the Planning Commission, who will be seeing this for the first time tomorrow.
Very good. Thank you. Keep up the good work.
All right, thank you.
Presentation of the annual review of the FM ambulance, Sanford ambulance, and it's going to be explained by two people. One person? Three people.
I'm just going to get up and give just a quick introduction. Mayor, Commissioners, tonight we have Sanford Ambulance with us. By a number of years ago, we started a report from Sanford Ambulance to the Commission on their activities and the things that they're seeing and doing that. And tonight we have the Director of Sanford Ambulance, Tim Meyer, and many of his team here as well, hopefully to answer any questions if you have any, but I'm going to turn it over to Tim Meyer.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, thanks for having us. For the record, my name is Tim Meyer. I'm the Senior Director, Sanford Ambulance and Sanford AirMed, and I'm going to talk today about the ground ambulance as part of our annual report requirement that we have an agreement with the city. Just want to mention I do have my panel of experts, so if we have questions about ambulance operations or medical care in the field, I've got Dr. Van Valkenburg, Chad Mickelson, Kathy Lonsky, and Rick Cameron with me, so they're the experts over there. But I'm going to cruise through some of these slides. I know you've seen them before, but at the ambulance service, we have it's a pretty big operation. We have 34 EMTs, 88 paramedics, and 13 dispatchers. We do have our own dispatch center. We're an accredited ambulance service. We're the only accredited ambulance service in North Dakota and one of 4 in Minnesota, because we do operate a good chunk in Moorhead and Clay County. This picture shows our ambulance posts throughout the city. We do actually 6 of these posts, and this is Fargo, Moorhead, and West Fargo. 6 of the posts are brick and mortar buildings. The other posts are designated spots where you'd move a truck to. It might be on a corner or a parking lot, something like that, depending on the volume and how many trucks we have available. Our call volume last year, and those just for the city of Fargo, we did, and for 911 calls, this doesn't include interfacility transfers, but we did just under 16,000 ambulance calls in the city of Fargo. And this graph breaks it down by month, roughly about between 1,200 and a little more than 1,400 per month. The larger blue bar at the bottom is the patients that are transported. And then the top 2 bars are not transported, either no patient found or the patient didn't need to go to the hospital. Here's a 5-year look at the ambulance volume in the city of Fargo. So it's been pretty consistent over the years at about 40 calls a day. There have been spikes, of course. One notable spot in about January of 22, we did an operational change where we weren't going to every behavioral health standby that the police were dispatched to, because that resulted in a lot of no transport or no patient contact. I think it was about 5,000 or 6,000 calls a year that we don't go on because of that. Hasn't changed a ton over the 5-year period though. Here's our response types in the city. There's a national initiative to reduce the use of lights and sirens by ambulances because it's dangerous. It's dangerous for the public. It's dangerous for the ambulance crew and the patient. We want to use that in a logical way to keep everybody safe. About a third of our calls we respond to lights and sirens. The rest of them we do not. That's all starts at the dispatch. So when somebody calls 911, those calls are coded so we can send the right asset with the right response mode. But the triple RDC does that work for us and hands that call off to our dispatchers. Here's a heat map for ambulance volume in Fargo. So I know it's a lot of stuff going on here. Obviously the darker parts are more likely to have ambulance calls. And the very busiest part is along Main Avenue, still to the east of where University is. So kind of the downtownish areas where most of the calls occur. And we gather data on every call, so we know where they're at. We have several decades worth of data, and we gather drive time data with the trucks as well, so they know the real speeds that we can travel on roads. So when we're dispatched to a call, our dispatch computer will select the closest ambulance in time based on real data of drive time throughout the city. Our goal is to respond to emergency calls in under 9 minutes, 90% of the time. So this graph reflects that information by month. So we're well up above our goal for meeting that response time standard in the city of Fargo. Here are the top 10 primary impressions. So the bar at the bottom is the most common alcohol use, and then behavioral health. Now you got to put that in context. So even alcohol use, that's about 800 calls out of 16,000. So it's just that there's a long list of things that we can code a call when the paramedics go out. But those are the top 10. The destinations is something we talk about a lot. The bigger, or the bottom bar, the medium blue color, I guess, would be patients that go to Sanford. The lighter blue bar is patients that go to Essentia, and then the very dark bar part at the top would be the VA hospital. And this pretty much follows the market split within the city. So 65 to 70% go to Sanford, and 25 to 30% go to Essentia. On this slide, in the pie graph, this depicts out of that 16,000 calls, we transport about 2/3 of them, and about 1/3 of them we don't transport for whatever reason. But we do code a reason why we went to that destination. So the vast majority of those calls, and you can see the count, that long bar at the bottom of 8,514 calls were patient's choice, and it went to the physician choice or family choice. So it's really important to us to take people to the correct hospital. I said this before in other committee hearings, people are very loyal to the healthcare and they don't want to go to the wrong place. So we work hard to make sure they do that. For cardiac care in Fargo, we have been awarded the Mission Lifeline Gold Award. Once again, we're one of about 18 ambulance services in the nation that have gotten this award every year it's been offered. In context, there are about 31,000 ambulance services in the United States, and 18 of them have been had gotten this award every time. For our really time-sensitive patients, so those that are having a STEMI, which is a heart attack, a stroke, some other critical medical condition like an airway or sepsis, something like this, and trauma, something that we would be considered time critical, our average response time is 6 minutes, 20 seconds, well below the 8:59 goal, or less than 9 minutes in the city of Fargo. So now for cardiac arrest, we submit data to a organization called CARES. It's a CARES registry, and on the left is the national standards, or the national benchmark, and on the right is the city of Fargo data. So I'll just run down this. So for cardiac arrest for people in a shockable rhythm, nationally, about 40% of those folks have received bystander CPR. In Fargo, we're at 34.8. Nationally, for application of bystander AED, about 11.3%. We're very close in Fargo at 11.1%. Nationally, 9.3% people survive to hospital discharge, which is really the benchmark that's meaningful for people who suffer sudden cardiac arrest. We're actually at 9.5% in Fargo, so we have a good system here. And the Utstein score, this is Kathy's project, so she's always looking at me about it. But nationally, the score benchmark is 30.7%, and we're right at 30%, so very close there. And the combined bystander CPR and AED use at 34.3% nationally, and we're at 33.3%. So we do very well with cardiac arrest in our city, and it takes a lot of elements to make that work. It takes a strong dispatching system, strong first response, bystanders that know how to use do CPR and use an AED, and rapid ALS, advanced life support, to get those patients the care that they need. And then we have a strong health system, so they need to be able to go to a cath lab and fix those issues that cause that cardiac arrest. So we have a good system here.
It's nice to see your survival rate. That's really good. National levels, 9.5, that's excellent.
So in other years, you've asked about opiate overdoses, so we included the slide. And this includes data for the last 4 years. And the top bar reflects where the paramedic had an impression of an opiate overdose. So if we just look at the 2023 data, and then compare it to the other things. So where the medics thought that the patient had an overdose, it's about maybe 150 people, right? And where the patients that receive Narcan is a little bit more than that. So, which tells us, because there's a lot of public access for Narcan now. So, and first responders have Narcan. So they're over triaging and using Narcan more than what we would consider somebody who's actually in an overdose. And then the bottom bar is actual doses of Narcan. So sometimes people get multiple doses of Narcan, but that's not always good for them either. So that's our opiate numbers for the city of Fargo. So that's the presentation. Be happy to take any questions.
Excellent reporting. Thanks. Look, good numbers. You guys are doing a good job. Thanks to the team out there. Everybody's working hard. I think Mr. Stander, happy more Narcan is out there and people are using it. That's so. Mr. Kolpak.
I just have one question. Thank you for the presentation. I'm familiar with the challenges from the Red River Dispatch when it comes to recruitment and retention, and they've had some ongoing issues there. Can you share what it's been like for you, making sure you're fully staffed?
Yeah, it is clearly the biggest problem that we face in the ambulance industry. And it's not just here in Fargo, it's a national thing. Fewer people are interested in this type of work. It has gotten a little better. You know, over COVID, we had a mass exodus of people. A lot of people left the profession. I'm not saying from our company, but nationally. It's been harder to recruit. We've had to do different strategies, like we now have a paramedic academy, where we've had a paramedic school in Fargo for 40-some years. But it was always like going to college. You went and paid your tuition and you went to school and you got a job when you graduated. Now we have an academy like the police and fire do in Fargo. We'll send people through the training. It's free. And we pay them a salary. So we're trying to remove that barrier for someone to, because it takes a long time to build a paramedic. It's about 14 months to do that. And that's a long time for someone to put their life on hold. You know, they may, unless they're young, it's hard to make that big commitment. So this year we'll graduate 9 people out of that academy out of about 20 paramedic students. We also have others that are in paramedic school, so we'll get about 16 paramedics this summer out of the paramedic school. Some of them, or much of them, are through the paramedic academy. Trying to attract people into the field. That's it is a trick, and the most obvious issue that we are facing today in the ambulance business.
Thank you.
Treasurer Pepcorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Could you talk a little bit about the technology in the vehicles now, when you obviously are taking somebody transit, and what kind of information you exchange with the hospital on the way?
Sure. Commissioner Pepcorn, there's a lot of technology in the ambulances. First of all, they have their own internet system, so they're always connected to the internet. Our cardiac monitors can send a 12-lead EKG to the receiving hospitals and actually to the physician, the cardiologist's phone. I think they can get them, right? Yeah. And so the cardiologist can see the 12 leads before we get to the hospital. We're calling STEMI alerts from the field so those folks can get to the cath lab, because time is muscle, and that's the whole goal, is to get those vessels opened up in the heart as soon as possible. We have lots of equipment. Like I said, just for driving, for safe driving, we have a vehicle monitoring system that measures side loads. We want people to be safe. It's a 10,000-pound vehicle. They're not like race cars, so we got to be careful with how we drive them. We don't want to get in wrecks and injure somebody.
Can I ask one more question, Mr. Chair? So our street department has those, the buttons that can turn the lights on, like our fire trucks. Do you have those in your ambulances?
Yes, we do. What we have is the strobe lights that flash at a certain frequency, and they change the street lights in the city of Fargo.
Thank you. I know the mayor wanted one of those for his personal car, and I objected to that. But I appreciate the ambulances having. Thank you.
I could get to the Bison games faster. No, you guys got great equipment. I like the fact a lot of public are using the AED. I mean, we never thought that they would convert to that, but people apparently are doing a good number. So that's excellent, and that's our save number is good for that. Any other comments or kind? Thank you for the good report. Appreciate all the team is doing.
All right, thank you.
Probably don't remember who started the paramedic course, but I was part of that maybe 40 years ago? Wow, okay. Chief Sabalski, we got the police report. Shelley, are we still okay? Do you want to take 5 minutes? Your fingers haven't worn out yet? Okay. Chief, don't use any big words, okay? Make it simple for her.
I'll do my best. Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. We're going to release our 2023 annual report this evening. I'm extremely proud of our department personnel across the board. 2023 has been a very tough year for all of them and our community, and they've persevered through a lot and also accomplished a lot. So there's a lot in this report. I'm prepared to go through all 80 pages one by one, but I won't. So we just got a couple of highlights to go over with you, and I also want to give a shout out to our communications team for the excellent putting together of this document. They really did an outstanding job. A lot of information in here that folks can read through in their own time. Let's see what I can do here. Not working? Okay, stand by. First thing I always want to point out is our strategic plan is woven in throughout the report. And these emblems, you can follow that, but there's an explanation here. So this is more comprehensive with definitions and priority levels for all of the different 4 goals and the objectives and strategies that go along with that. So it's kind of a piece that's woven throughout the report itself. Big focus in 2023 was the expansion of our many officer wellness programs, training, etc. We've done just a plethora of different trainings and expansion of our wellness program, much of it before our July 14th incident and then continuing on after. So I really think that preparation that was done by the department, obviously unknowing that that tragedy was going to happen, I think was significant in helping our personnel work through these very traumatic events. We also will be hiring our first civilian wellness coordinator here very soon, and continue to expand upon that program. So that you'll see in 19 and 20 of the pages. The other piece that we're also very happy with is our crime data. And while the total numbers are flat, we had 11 more crimes than last year, but those were proactive arrests. Most of our major crime categories, especially the violent crimes and burglary in particular, which is always of great concern to the community, are down. So we've got some pretty good significant drops in crime. Having your house broken into, your garage is significant, so those are good numbers. We're happy with that. And our violent crime, murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, all down. And in some instances, we've been able to also increase our clearance rates, meaning how many crimes are cleared with an arrest of the perpetrator, which is also a big goal in terms of the safety of the community. So we're pretty happy with those numbers. We've got a couple pages here on our community engagement team and the many activities that they have been involved with throughout the community to engage with many of our diverse neighborhoods, including race, ethnicity, gender, age, sexual orientation. Across the board, they've done tremendous work. Many of you may have seen the presentation on the work that was done in the arbors at our last advisory and oversight board meeting last week. So this engagement team, along with the rest of the department, doing a tremendous job, engaging with the diverse community, which of course is the number one remedy to minimize, decrease any bias that exists, either with police department members or members of the community. Bringing everyone together and creating those relationships is how we address that. Drug Task Force, our narcotics unit, another area of kind of significant concern. Huge increase in our fentanyl pill M30 seizures, 126% increase. We got almost 86,000 pills in 2023. 126% increase from 2022, and if you go back to 2021, we got about 2,000 pills. That's just what we're seizing. So the size and depth of the overdose issue is still very significant. We had 31 fatal overdoses last year in 2023, a 29% increase from 2022, and the overall overdoses were also up 26% from 2022. So this is still a very significant incident that our task force and personnel are working on very hard. But as you're aware, the influx of these illegal drugs is astronomical. Our training and development unit has been doing outstanding work in recruitment. We graduated 2 recruit classes in 2023. We've got 14 people in our current recruit class. And on this slide here, you'll note that the diversity, the demographics, diversity of our department has increased exponentially over the last 3 years. And we're involved in a number of programs to continue to expand that diversity, so we're very happy with that. As well as our leadership training. Of course, we'll be spending significant time in 2024 honoring Officer Wallene in DC, helping to get Officers Dotis and Hawes back to full duty, and they are making very good progress in both cases. And then, honoring the heroism of Zach Robinson. So a lot of events will be forthcoming in addition to the DC trip on those kind of memorials, as well as the local memorial and the memorial out in Bismarck. So that's the highlights in a nutshell. I'm happy to take any questions from the commission.
Any questions for the commissioners? Commissioner Strand?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, I'm curious, when you're dealing with this explosion of fentanyl, as the whole country is, where's it coming from?
Mexico.
And how's it getting from Mexico? I hear so many different things. I'm trying to sort out where's it
Sure.
really crossing the border.
So the intelligence that we get from the DEA is that the fentanyl is shipped from China to Mexico. There are two main cartels in Mexico who take that fentanyl, stamp it into the M30 pills, and then get it into the U.S. through a variety of means. It comes from the mail, it comes on foot. I think we're all aware that we've got issues at the border, and there's a lot of people that get through the border unbeknownst to law enforcement. And there's a lot of narcotics trafficking, human trafficking that goes along with those particular issues. Car, plane, I mean, pretty much you name it, it's coming in. But that's the main source.
What would you do to mitigate that if you had the ability to, and you knowing what you know, at a balcony view, what needs to be done?
Well, at a local level, I think that we're doing everything we can. I think the big solutions rest with the federal government in terms of what they do about these things. So it's kind of out of my control.
Okay. One last question, Mayor. A topic you've been involved with at the state level locally, and we've heard it before, and I just would like to reaffirm it. The rape kits and the testing in Bismarck, where are we at with that, and how's that progressing and being addressed now?
We are doing very good. And actually, if you look, rape as a category, that went down significantly, and our clearances are also good. That was an area that we focused on in the restructure of our investigations division last year as well. See if we can get to the right slide here. There it is. So, the rapes are down significantly. Our clearances are above the national average, which is good, but still room for improvement there. But we've really taken a much larger focus on that, both in terms of the investigations and the evidence processing, et cetera. So I think we're doing well there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Preston?
So the report is available on the website?
The report is online as we speak.
Okay, thanks.
And he'll have a press conference tomorrow with the press if they have
that's right.
questions on the.
Yes, you're all invited. Noon tomorrow, we'll have a press conference and put some context to the numbers, take other questions at Gateway Commons.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Applications for property tax exemptions, improvements made to buildings. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote.
Colpack.
Aye.
Preston.
Aye.
Pipcorn.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye.
So should we go back to number 50? It says there's a recommended motion.
Receive and file.
For the presentation, Chief, is there an action item on that?
It says to receive and file the
Oh, to
20.
receive and file. I'll take that motion. Commissioner Preston, or Pepcorn?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Second. Roll call vote, please.
Pipcorn.
Aye.
Preston.
Aye.
Colpack.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Are we finished with the property tax relief? Shelley, did we vote?
Yep.
Okay. 52, any other corrections on the agenda? Set 7:30 Tuesday, April 9th as the date of Board of Equalizations to meet. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote.
Strand.
Yes.
Colpack.
Aye.
Pipcorn.
Aye.
Preston.
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. Liaison Commissioner assignment update, Commissioner Strand,
No update, Mayor.
Commissioner Kolpak.
One slide. I'm excited to share. We attended a media advisory last week at the water treatment plant because they received a national award. It was announced March 6th at the Membrane Technology Conference in Florida. They chose Fargo over 5 other large water systems around the country, and it recognizes an outstanding facility that essentially uses membrane technology in an environmentally friendly way. And the plant was commissioned in 2018. Many of you were part of that dedication. Water treatment plant is designed to serve our growing region and produce up to 15 million gallons per day of drinking water. And what was evident when we were at the media advisory with the team, the leadership team and the staff, is if you wonder why the water treatment plant is so successful, it's because of the passion and dedication of that team and their commitment to always doing the right thing. They were very proud to share all kinds of information with the media who were there and give us a tour. And so I just congratulate them all.
And the only bad thing about looking at the water plant is looking at the water is it comes out of the red and they have to clean that up. So when you look at that, it's like, holy cow, they do a great job. Commissioner Preston.
No report.
Commissioner Pipcorn. Okay, you all motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Or adjourn.